Live. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Thursday, February 3rd, 2022. How about that? There's nothing special about that, I don't think, except that you're here and I'm here, and that makes us our time together. And it's a little early for pizza, so what are we going to do? Well, plenty to cover today. I'm depending on Greg to round up a good number of these things. Stories from the impactful to the frivolous. Starting with the frivolous, in case you were wondering which direction we would go. I guess maybe the dumbest story I could possibly bring you and still hold your interest in the opening moments of the show. It turns out that, well, for one, I guess we'll spin it this way. Somebody figured out how to get Rudy Giuliani to wear a mask consistently, except for the very end. Apparently, we just can't get enough of mixing people from the terrible Trump administration and also the worst that the Republican Party has to offer, and reality game show appearances. There's just no end to it, I guess. And I guess we should have anticipated as much, since that the actual president who served, at least was given over the reins of control to serve the last term in office, was a reality TV star of sorts himself. But Rudy Giuliani apparently making an appearance on The Masked Singer, which I believe Sarah Palin also did. And then she got COVID. I don't think it's related, but other than the stupid, you have to be kind of dumb to do the Masked Singer thing, and then you kind of have to be dumb to not get vaccinated and not wear a mask and not take any precautions and not believe you'll get COVID. I mean, that is kind of dumb. I'm sorry. Anyway, I don't know that he's got COVID, but he was on The Masked Singer, and I don't know how that went or why anybody would enjoy that or how it could possibly be the case that he sings well, or I don't understand the show, so maybe I've never seen it. I've seen promos for it. My wild guess about the show was that you would have people who could sing on it, and then they wore wacky costumes. But then I guess they just said, why not throw that part out and just have the wacky costumes? And I don't know. Anyway, he sang, I guess, and then he was unmasked as the Masked Singer. That's the way the show apparently works. I don't really understand exactly what goes on, but at any rate, at some point they take the masks off, and that's supposed to be the draw of the show. Which crazy celebrity was it who was wearing this wacky costume and singing? And it turned out to be Rudy Giuliani, and there was a small protest. I have this is how impactful and important the story is. Now everybody's reporting on it, but the article I grabbed was from People magazine, which we only go to for our celebrity news. People and TMZ sometimes have all this stuff. Ken Jeong and Robin Thicke, who are judges on the show, reportedly walk off stage. I guess at this point we can now say walked off stage after Rudy Giuliani is unveiled on The Masked Singer. Both judges reportedly left the stage in protest of the former New York City mayor and current insurrectionist, but later returned. So I'm not certain what we're supposed to make of that. Two of the other judges who were there, Jenny McCarthy and Nicole Scherzinger. I don't actually know Nicole Scherzinger. Jenny McCarthy I recognize, and I think she's kind of a conservative type person, has been a little bit outspoken about that stuff. I don't know. Nicole Scherzinger might have no idea who Rudy Giuliani is, possibly, or might just be the kind of person that says, I will compartmentalize and stay here and whatever, talk to Rudy Giuliani. So, I don't know. I guess he seems to be really sweating bullets about the insurrection and them closing in on him in the past couple of days, revealing the role that he played in trying to overthrow the government and telling people to certify themselves as fake electors and messing around with the various memos, trying to find legal ways to seize voting machines, etc., and also doing some masked singing. So, I mean, I guess that was the protest from Ken Jeong and Robin Thicke. Like, what are we doing putting this guy on our, light entertainment show? He's an insurrectionist and ought to be in jail, and we shouldn't be masked singing with the guy. But he's the one singing, not you. Anyway, that's the huge news. I could read you the whole thing, but what would that get you? I don't know. There is some interesting reporting. I mean, it is, I guess, somewhat interesting to see what does People magazine actually have to say about someone like Rudy Giuliani. And I don't know, it looks like it might sum things up nicely. Elsewhere, Giuliani's erratic personal behavior has raised eyebrows. In November 2020, while speaking at a press conference about the Trump campaign's attempts to overturn their election loss to Joe Biden, he could be seen sweating profusely to the point that hair dye appeared to begin dripping down the sides of his face. So good eye for People on that one. That's how they remember him. And then also mention of his appearance in the Borat movie. People doing some reasonably good reporting on. I mean, they don't have room. I didn't expect to see them saying, well, serious thing, overthrowing the government, insurrection. They do mention that, but they focus on the truly embarrassing entertainment stories, which is what we've come to depend on them for. All right. Greg Dworkin is here. I said we were going to depend on him to round up some of the, I don't know, maybe more serious stories than The Masked Singer, but we'll see what he's got. And see if we think that's really true. Good morning, Greg.
Good morning. So today's session is going to be a lot of lightning round stuff. There's just so many little stories as opposed to a bunch of big stories. But I'm going to start.
What did he sing?
Given your presentation.
All right.
Opening comments and remarks.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
From Brendan Nyhan.
Okay. Was he
who
on
was
The Masked
talking
Singer?
about some excellent investigative reporting.
Oh.
In the New York Times the other day, which I think we covered yesterday.
Yes.
Trump's words and deeds reveal depths of his drive to retain power. Seth Maskett, another political scientist, says there's some excellent investigative reporting here, but the headline's a serious problem. Obama and George W. Bush had deep drives to retain power, but they didn't organize coups to do it.
Right.
So Brendan Nyhan chimes in and says this. Casual news readers will not know that Trump's words and deeds reveal depths of his drive to retain power really means Trump is an authoritarian who is seeking to destroy a democratic system. And as I don't want to speak for you, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but if you added and probably should be hung, that would be a more accurate headline.
I didn't think that was the ones you were going to. But you're right. Yes, thank you. I will accept those words. He in other countries and other times.
In other countries and other times, this might have happened.
But we're very tolerant.
We're not advocating violence. That's not what's going on.
We are enlightened, here. And
the fact is he's a traitor.
Yes.
And whatever flows from that flows from that.
Yeah, I mean, it's not my fault what's in the statute books. It's there.
So
I got to
meanwhile, the big news this morning, as Jim Sciutto sums up. Breaking, President Biden says the U.S. has killed ISIS leader Abu Ibrahim al-Hashimi al-Qurashi overnight in an operation in northern Syria. The Qurashi part is a tribal name, Muhammad's tribe, so very, very common.
Getcha. I see. Yeah, it's a bit of owls in there, but it's good to break that down and figure out what those names mean. Okay.
The rest of it is a nom de guerre. It's a war name. It's not his real name. Biden will deliver remarks on it later this morning. The white helmets, the Syrian rescue people, have already pointed out that there's 6 kids and 4 women also dead, 13 in total. They haven't identified the other 3. They're a pretty reliable source. There can be lots of arguments about, well, if the guy deliberately hides in a compound with families, this is what happens. I'm not going there. I'm just saying this happened this morning. And Alexander Vindman, who was on Morning Joe this morning, just commenting on it along with Ukraine, pointed out that, people have a lot of problems with what happened in Afghanistan. But the fact is that Biden pulling out 3,000 troops so that he can put them elsewhere is actually not a bad idea. And so they can be sent to European allies to deter Putin. And,
yes.
They could be used in Syria.
Right. I'm not enthused about any of it, really, but...
he's just pointing out that,
true.
It's everything comes with pluses and minuses.
Sure. And they might as well point out that mad rush by Trump, especially at the ending days of his administration, to pull all the troops he could out of those places, out of, not Afghanistan, but out of Europe. He wanted all troops brought home from Europe just so that, no one was standing in the way of Putin. But
it's like the Iranian nuclear deal. Screw everything up, and then when it doesn't work, when the next guy comes, you see, I told you, you don't know how to do anything.
Yep, pretty much.
A bunch of the landmines that were left for the next president. So at the same time, Biden is not going to get a tremendous amount of credit for deterring Putin from invading Ukraine, but he probably deterred Putin from invading Ukraine. He didn't give Putin what he wanted. He basically said NATO is actually not only solid, it's more solid than it ever was, thanks to you. We not only have commitments from everybody, and also the Brits are, and we are looking at your oligarch, properties, and we'll confiscate those if you invade. So just let them know, because they'll let you know what they think of that.
Yeah.
And by the way, we also have troops in various places that weren't there before, and everybody's agreed, and we're all solid on this. And if that was your intent, congratulations. So the diplomats are pretty happy with how things turned out, because anytime you don't go to war, they consider that a win.
Sure, of course. And we've had hard
That's what they
times.
do for a living. They consider not going to war as a win.
Yeah, but of course, that's exactly what they're there for. And as you were saying about NATO, we've had a hard time for a lot of years getting people to, really recommit to the mission. And now they're all like, yep, we're signing up, we're in. Please, by all means. No, by no means leave us alone here with Putin.
Right.
Okay.
So, that's going to be the news today. What it all means, we'll have to sort out. There's also some other major security news that I don't know if you caught, but is extremely important. A wandering chicken was seized near the Pentagon. The bird was taken into custody after approaching a security post, and as the article says in the Washington Post, the specific checkpoint at which the chicken drew attention cannot be revealed.
Okay, I'm here to see Colonel Sanders.
Well, that's the thing. There's a very funny guy who makes chicken jokes for a living on Twitter.
Oh.
And he said, look, I just pulled my phone out and they took me, And I understand that I'm going to be interrogated by a Colonel Kentucky. I understand.
Okay.
Or maybe it's a General Tso. I'm not sure. But either way, I think I'm screwed.
Now, that would have been a much better multicultural and Chinese New Year joke to say that he was there to see General Tso.
Well, it's the year of the tiger, so, it's not the year of the chicken.
He was there to eat the chicken.
I don't know if there is a year of the chicken, but it's the year of the tiger.
Why did this
Last year was the year of the rat.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Just changed.
Right. Okay. Well, put a tracker
There's your
on this
cultural
chicken.
competence, lecture for today.
Right. Year of the rat. Okay.
You're the tiger now.
To be done with that.
That's why it's so important that the Bengals won.
Ah, perfect. There's no rat team.
So here's Washington Post sort of doing a both sides middle of the road kind of headline with their big story today.
Oh, all right. What's that?
Now, again, I have a lot of lightning headlines here from Twitter.
Including actual lightning. Storms.
And most of them are about things that are purported or suggested. So keep that in mind as we talk about this. But this story, for example, memo circulated among Trump allies advocating using NSA data in attempt to prove stolen election. The proposal to seize and analyze NSA unprocessed raw signals data raises legal and ethical concerns that set it apart from other attempts that have come to light.
Okay.
Again, you could have put this differently. Trump allies advocating using spy agency data to keep Trump in power, which is one of the reasons some people suggest he probably should be hung.
Yeah. Is that something he would have to seize? I don't know. Well, all right.
The memo uses the banal language of government bureaucracy, but the proposal it advocated was extreme. That's why you should use extreme headlines.
All right.
Brendan Nyhan's absolutely right. President Donald Trump should invoke the extraordinary powers of the National Security Agency and Defense Department to sift through raw electronic communications in an attempt to show that foreign powers had intervened in the 2020 election to help Joe Biden win. Proof of foreign interference would, quote, support next steps to defend the Constitution in a manner superior to current civilian-only judicial remedies, said the December 18, 2020 memo.
All right. Sure, we should totally do that.
This memo was circulated among Trump allies.
Yeah.
It was presented formally to Senator Kevin Cramer, with Ron Johnson zooming in.
Kevin Cramer.
Because a failed Republican congressional candidate who sent a copy of the memo to Senator Kevin Cramer, was a friend of his. And also, Mike Lindell and the usual suspects were all trying to get this information to Trump. In other words, there were a bunch of crazies running around.
How did that guy fail as a
with
candidate?
More and more bizarre schemes, who wanted the president to see them and were sometimes getting audiences with higher-ups very close to the president. But it's unclear who did the memos, how serious they were, in effect, whether or not the Trump people were humoring the folks who were giving them this information, whether it actually reached Trump, whether Trump was acting on it. That's why the stories recently about, it turns out Trump really was into this stuff is important.
Yes.
Because you can't blow this stuff off anymore as, well, it was a bunch of crazies who happened to have all-day meetings with the White House in the Oval Office because Trump was really peripherally involved. Well, why were they meeting all day in the Oval Office? They weren't really meeting all day in the Oval Office, but they were at the Willard Hotel, and Trump was calling in. So,
a lot of them were in
the separation between the crazies and Trump himself, let alone his inner circle,
that's
pretty
the
thin.
same thing in many cases. And, of course, the overlap between the crazies, Trump's inner circle, and the cast of The Masked Singer also.
Well, again, that's what I'm saying. When you go into the speculative, you shouldn't draw too many firm conclusions. This isn't proof or a smoking gun that Trump was trying to use NSA data. In fact, all it is the people who were crazy, who we thought were around Trump, who were really nuts, especially in the final days, they really were crazy.
How come no one's signing their memos? I mean, I guess they must know this is probably wrong and illegal. I don't know. Or they're redacting the names. I don't understand exactly how this is happening. If you're an obscure failed congressional candidate and come up with this thing, if you wrote it or know who wrote it, you would think you'd put your name on it somewhere. But, well, obviously, somehow they got a name attached to it. I don't know. So maybe it's just a name and email.
Well, the names are coming out. And then, as it turns out, this article mentions names you never heard of before, let alone the people you only heard about when you heard about the PowerPoint.
Right.
So Michael Pillsbury, who's an informal advisor to Trump at the time, said that period in time was amateur hour with people who didn't know Trump or had never met with Trump before in their lives, attempting to get into the Oval Office to get authorized to do investigations that the rest of the government had examined and said there's no evidence for. Which is probably true.
Yeah, it sounds crazy, but it was happening. So that's
Kramer
weird.
said Del Rosso, one of the people who was fingered on the memo, sent the memo to his office after a January 4th meeting that both men attended at the Trump International Hotel organized by MyPillow chief executive Mike Lindell.
I can't believe we still have to mention that guy.
Right? Kramer and Senator Cynthia Lummis joined some 24 others crammed into a ground floor hotel conference room to discuss election fraud allegations, according to Kramer and an aide to Lummis. Participants recalled that Johnson also attended via video conference. By the way, if you had asked me if Cynthia Lummis is a U.S. senator like 10 minutes ago, I would have said no and failed that question.
Oh, see, her I would remember, but Kramer I had no idea.
Kevin Kramer, sure.
The guy
details
from
of the meeting, which took place 2 days before the attack on the Capitol, have not been previously reported. The meeting was similar to a briefing held in a congressional office building the next day for members of the House.
Sure,
Michael
why not
Flynn
have it here in the House?
Also extended an invitation to at least one senator and his staff, according to a person familiar with the meeting. Flynn didn't respond to requests for comment. And this article does what every article should do. Michael Flynn, who resigned in 2017 as Trump's national security advisor and advocated using the military to rerun the election in battleground states, is how they describe Michael Flynn. They should also say he's also a disgraced general who was convicted and pardoned.
Yes, and fired for craziness in the Trump administration, or the Obama administration, but also fired for craziness in the Trump administration. Fired for craziness by 2 different presidents.
Right.
That's true.
That person and others interviewed for this report spoke on the condition of anonymity to describe private conversations and sensitive documents.
Yes.
What the senators heard from a handful of presenters was some of the most fantastical claims among those alleging that the election had been stolen. So they wanted to get the machines and they wanted to do their own analysis, basically.
And they wanted to be on the Masked Singer.
Lindell says he doesn't recall a lot of this.
All right, well.
It was to line up congressional allies to delay January 6th certification. We were hoping the senators would give it 10 more days. And Lindell went on to say, I didn't even know a lot of the people in the room. I had never met them before in my life. I didn't care.
Brought them here. I just paid for the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, sure, right. And now everybody wants 10 days.
Again, one of the reasons why you have to emphasize it's speculative is both Kramer and Ron Johnson ultimately voted to certify Biden's victory. Interestingly, Lummis didn't.
Oh.
She voted to object to the certification of Biden's win in Pennsylvania because of unrelated concerns about the state's vote by mail law.
Oh, unrelated ones. Yes, right.
Yeah.
Sure, totally unrelated.
Totally.
I didn't know. So, do we say Ron Johnson voted for it? I didn't even realize that. Okay, I would not have guessed
so
that. He
that's
probably
why we
regrets
say,
that
okay,
vote.
well, they gave my senator a bunch of stuff. He's
Yeah.
entitled to listen to his constituents, and then he ignored it. So what's the problem here?
There, you have an argument on that one. I mean, he's spent the time since then basically saying, I don't know, that he didn't believe what he voted, but okay.
Well, that's a different story. Nail him on that, not this.
All right, I will. That's
why I'm saying, this.
Well,
when you get these stories, they paint a bigger picture of the environment, which is fantastic.
Yes.
But they're not smoking guns in terms of, oh my gosh, this is what they were going to do.
Not with respect to Kramer and Johnson.
Not with respect to the
NSA. They get off the
NSA.
hook on that one. Yeah, too. By the way, I think he should seize the information, the raw data from SETI to see if the aliens were talking about this.
Right.
race.
But Brandy Buckman, who now works at Daily Kos and who I know previously from her stint at Courthouse News as somebody who went to these interesting trials that nobody else was going to and telling us about what was going on.
Why am I here?
Tweeted this morning, I don't know who needs to hear this, but if you're a senior level staffer for a Republican that may be implicated in January 6 crimes and you were at those meetings or facilitated them, I'd wager safely you're utterly on your own, bub. Get a good lawyer and consider flipping like now.
I guess so. But that suggests an interesting line of questioning. I see that they're going to try and get off the hook by saying, well, I didn't do anything with it. I ignored it. I guess you might want to ask at some point, who set this meeting up for you and why did you go?
And what did you do with the information after you ignored it?
The fact that it was off-site or off the hill and over at the Trump
Is there a
hotel
memo in writing where you told these
Why
people
did
this
you
is crazy
go
we're
there?
not doing this?
Yeah.
Or did you forward it all to Mark Meadows?
Somebody has to convince you to leave the Capitol and go to this meeting. How did that happen? What did it say? And why did you believe it?
Yeah.
All right. Well, they'll be smoking guns soon enough. And Mike
and part
Lindell
of the
could be
reason
smoking
I do
anything.
that Brandy Buckman tweet is, again, you have to get the sense of what's going on here. Here's, again, a little tweet from Terry Canfield, who's a lawyer, UC Berkeley, book writer, author, person. There should be indictments by now.
Yes.
A lawyer. 768 indictments so far, including Steve Bannon and a recent indictment for seditious conspiracy in an investigation that's ongoing in less than a year during a pandemic. Same person. Yeah, but none of that counts.
Well, the same person could have said, I feel like there's not enough publicity for this. And they're right. 728, I mean, are we talking about people who got indicted for smearing poop on the walls also? Or
She cites, the Trump Organization, Paul Manafort, Michael Flynn, Alan
those are
Weisselberg,
good
George
ones.
Papadopoulos, Rick Gage, George Nader, Michael Cohen, Lev Parnas, 2 impeachments. The Mueller team
That's the list we want to
got
hear.
indicted or got guilty pleas in 34 people, 3 companies, but none of those count.
Yeah, we should be repeating a lot of that.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm repeating it now.
Do it again.
We
Later.
done a lot, and there's more to come. And
I'll
it's
record you doing it and I'll
relatively
put it on
fast,
here.
given what's going on.
Okay.
So, again, I think that that's all background that one needs to keep in mind
I think you're right.
when we're looking at really what's happening here. And that's why the Brandy Buckman piece, and all these little stories about this is all speculative, but oh my God, did you read this? Stories. I think things are really tightening. I think the walls really are moving in on a number of people associated with what happened January 6th, whether Trump himself as a experienced mob boss used to insulating himself from things by simply implying what you should be done is going to be enough. This is where RICO stuff comes in. I don't know. But I will say, I think that the January 6th committee hearings are going to be pretty compelling.
I hope so. Damn it. Already?
Now, in the last 2 minutes before we go, I don't have the story handy. It came across my threshold, and I can't put my finger on where it is.
Oh, okay.
But it was an experienced pollster doing focus groups and research on why parents are hesitant about getting the vaccine for the little ones.
Okay.
And their kids. And it was quite interesting. And it turns out about a third of parents are going to line up and do it yesterday as soon as it's available. A third are going to wait and see what happens to that first third,
Okay.
which is not unreasonable when you're a
No, a
parent.
lot of people do things like that.
And a third either will
Interesting.
never do it, or of them, half of that third will only do it if they're forced to by mandate, which is why mandates are so important.
Yeah.
And why you should keep an eye on what's going on in terms of what your schools order you to do. I'm happier with vaccine mandates and mask options than mask mandates and vaccine options.
Okay.
Personally,
You got to take
because
an
I think
option
mandates
somewhere.
work, and I think vaccines work, and I think you should do them.
It seems like a good compromise position. We got two things, and I'll give you an option on one of them. All
Right,
right.
so-
good deal.
One or the other, but you got to do one or the other. So the thing is that these parents, when interviewed, would say things like, it really depresses me to hear about how bad the pandemic is, so I've stopped listening.
Okay.
I don't
Solution.
read the news. I go out of my way to avoid it. It's just depressing. And now I don't really know whether these vaccines are necessary or just how bad the pandemic is. I mean, that's basically the gist of the quote.
Yeah, well,
I've
that's
deliberately
not good.
decided not to follow the news. So now when you tell me how bad things are, I don't know whether to believe you because I'm not following the news.
So when they say they do their own research, they mean they don't do their own research.
They go out of their way to block certain words.
I won't
from
even look at
appearing
other
in their
people's
feed so that they don't
research.
have to know about it because it's too depressing.
Interesting.
So, these are the folks who are vaccine hesitant, who you can overcome with information. You just have to get the information to them. These
Yeah,
are
but
not
they don't want
diehard
information.
MAGA people who refuse to do it, and I'd rather die, and I'll show you on TV how I do that.
All right. Well, so you got to sing about vaccine efficacy as a masked
Well, that's
singer
why it's so important to get it
TV.
on Jimmy Fallon and places like that.
Yeah. Well, I guess so. You got to sneak it past people.
Yeah, pretty much.
do
And
it
that's
at
why People
football
Magazine
games.
covering this stuff is important.
Yeah.
Because it has to be at the checkout counter at the supermarket.
That's right next to Alien Boy. That's not People magazine per se, but okay. Well, that's an interesting take on things.
A poll on some of this coming
Read.
up after the break.
Okay, great. And well, look, everybody, please get information about things and try to make it good information. I
Right.
know it's
Also,
stressful.
David is not advocating violence against the President of the United States or the
Yeah.
former President of the United
Get
States.
information about that. That's right. If you're adjudicated guilty and executed, that's justice. Hi, it's me, David Waldman, the same guy who was just talking to you a second ago. Our Patreon subscription drive is still going strong with over 175 monthly donors who help keep us on the air. If we've helped keep you going during the pandemic, why not return the favor and help us keep going so we can all be together for the next disaster? Patreon.com, Patreon.com, makes it easy to make secure, recurring monthly contributions to support our show. Patreon.com/KagroX gets you straight to our donation page. Maybe you'd like to thank us for keeping you sane during the Trump era. Maybe you're looking forward to in-depth explanations of what's going on in the Biden administration. Whatever it is that keeps you listening, we need your help to keep bringing it to you. And hey, if you happen to prefer using PayPal or even the Square Cash app, we're up and running with those options too. Thanks again, everyone, for all your support. We literally could not do this without you. Welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Net Roots Radio. We spent the break not advocating violence, so that was good.
Yeah, we're very peaceful people.
Right. Everyone just remain calm. Thank you. We'll handle this from here on. And what's
Keep
next?
calm
to
and
distract
carry
us?
on and mind the gap.
Yes. Yeah. Why not? We'll say that.
So
Seems like
Navigator Research has a poll,
good for them.
and they asked, which side do you agree with more? The best way to keep the economy open
Chocolate, not peanut butter.
is through mask and vaccine requirements that slow the spread. Otherwise, too many people will get sick at once
I'm
and
for
leave
that.
businesses without
for that.
workers. Do you agree
Good.
with that?
I think it's a good way. Sure. Yeah. What else?
Or the best way to keep the economy open is by returning to life as normal before the pandemic. This virus is less severe than other strains, and we can't let it completely derail life again.
Wait a minute. This virus is less severe than other strains of coronavirus? Do they mean novel coronavirus,
I mean COVID,
really?
yeah.
Yeah, okay. Because it's not. I mean, we know that. It is more severe than other strains of coronavirus. But okay, bad question.
Well, no,
But people aren't
it's
epidemiologists.
not more severe. It's more infectious.
Oh?
You don't get as sick with Omicron.
No, I'm not talking about it. I'm just saying that I think they should have, well,
They're talking about Omicron here.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm just when they say other strains of coronavirus, I mean, you mean like a common cold?
Like SARS.
Yeah. I mean, this is more serious than that.
This is SARS too.
Less so than SARS, but yeah. Okay. The sequel is never as good anyway.
That was the question.
All right. So masking
Overall,
to return or just go?
Yeah. Do you want to just like do stuff to help prevent spread and get back to normal, or do you want to just ignore everything and get back to normal?
Okay.
So overall, 59% go along with the best way to keep the economy open is mask and vaccine requirements.
Yes, and they're
remember, they're not mandates, here. Folks. They're requirements.
Oh, different.
So 3 in 5 independents, 62%, agree more with keeping the economy open with mask and vaccine requirements over returning to pre-pandemic normalcy. And 35% of Republicans agree with that. 65% disagree. Democrats, 80-20. White people, 55-45. Everybody else, a lot more.
Yeah, okay.
So the idea that we want to turn back to normal is absolutely true. People are tired of this. They want to go back to normal. Oh, well, that means we can drop everything and go. No, that's not what it means.
All right, they're with me. I mean, I say I put the mask on and I do the normal things.
You got to be careful so that you can go back to more normal. That's what this means.
Yeah. Good. Well, people should do those things. I notice that among Democrats, yes, as you said, 80-20. That's 4 out of 5, and that's as many as the dentists who prefer sugarless gum for their patients who chew gum. That is the gold standard of polling.
Right. Or doctors who in World War II preferred Camel cigarettes.
Oh, I did not even realize.
Yes,
well, they were wrong.
It tickles your T-zone, T for taste and T for throat.
And
that was an ad campaign that was on the old Abbott and
afterwards.
Costello radio show, which is how I know it.
Okay, well, we've made mistakes in the past. Mistakes were made, I should say.
Right.
All right. Good.
So,
well, you should wear masks to return.
You know, I just remember of hardships. You know, part of that ad campaign was 2 people, a man and a woman, speaking on a porch. Remember how hard it was to get cigarettes during the war? Well, I got Camels, and I decided I'd like them better. But, you know, just a reminder that supply chain issues are, like, not new.
That's true. We never heard of supply chains before. Okay. So Camels were available because no one wanted them. All right.
They were giving them out. They were giving them out
actual
to the
camels.
troops.
Yeah.
Actual camels.
All right.
Yeah.
Hershey chocolate.
The spitting, biting kind.
Right.
So, again, just keep in mind when people talk about the effects of the pandemic, that's what we're talking about. Lightning round switch. This is Derek Thompson on Twitter talking about a pandemic-related phenomenon called the Great Resignation. You may have heard of it.
Yes.
A lot of people quit their jobs.
They did, for various reasons.
And the Great Resignation is sometimes represented in the media as a surge of burned-out white-collar workers taking a break. But the quits range is overwhelmingly driven by young people and non-college grads switching to service sector jobs that pay more.
That's what they're supposed to do.
People with less than high school education are quitting far greater numbers than college degree or higher.
Is that how it was? I don't know if I've ever seen it presented that way, but Derek has.
Well, yeah, because, you know, people talk about, having trouble getting people in the office. In fact, it's having trouble getting people in the restaurants. We know that. And, of course, probably emblematic of all of this are the school bus drivers who quit to go work for Amazon because the pay is better and it's safer.
And they get a free jar to pee in. You have to bring your own jar with the public schools.
Yeah, something along those lines. So I thought that was interesting and of interest, and the graph was quite eye-catching. Because less than high school is really driving a whole lot of this, and that's sort of important.
Yeah, that's funny. I don't think I would have had that impression, I guess, if he had polled me, but he didn't. So I would have said, no, I think it's probably more blue-collar service workers are doing it. The idea that white-collar workers were the ones doing all the quitting. No, they got to do their jobs remotely from home.
Well, you know, white-collar workers talk to white-collar workers, and then they post it on Twitter, so... You know about them, but that's, you know, everybody else is
maybe
like,
they just,
I don't want to read the news and I don't want to be on Twitter.
Maybe we're just thinking that they quit because, like, I just saw you on Zoom and you have no pants on. I recommend that you do quit, but I didn't realize it was such a white-collar phenomenon.
You leave, you know.
What's his name out of it? We already
Jonathan, what's his name?
One of all Jonathans are guilty of this.
Yeah.
All right, well... Yeah, I forget which one it is, too.
The Jonathan that I always think is the other Jonathan.
Okay, right. It should have been Turley.
It should have been thoroughly, but it wasn't thoroughly. So just a couple of other lightning round things here, because it's all part and parcel of just how chilling the environment is, and especially in
It's very cold.
highly Republican states. This one is Oklahoma. Marty Argyle tweets, a new bill in Oklahoma proposes to charge teachers personally from their own personal resources $10,000 per incident per individual if they teach any biology that offends Christian moral principles.
Biology?
Yeah, things are clearly not okay and okay.
Wow. I guess not. By the way, that's no shocker. Everything comes out of teachers' pockets. So,
Right.
Not a
So
big deal.
if the teacher loses, they have to pay the $10,000 fine out of their own finances. If they get any help from another individual, they're fired.
They're getting very specific in their
They are.
revenge
I mean,
taking.
again, these are proposed bills. It doesn't mean they'll pass.
No,
And
thank
one of the
God
things as you
for
read
that.
through these, the first thing that
Make
occurred
sure
to
you
me is
thank
like,
the right
have
God.
these always been going on, and now that we have better reporting, we're hearing about them?
Yes, I think so. That's true. Well, not unlike everybody being armed with cell phone cameras and catching
Yeah,
police brutality
Exactly. I
on
mean,
camera.
there's always been a bunch of nutters in some of these state
That's
legislatures
where they
that are
grow.
willing to do pretty much anything because they're in a safe district.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, talk about Sharia law.
True. I mean, it is. It's very weird how specific they're being and how many of their new. I guess they're taking our lesson. We keep finding out that our really super important laws have no teeth and there's no enforcement mechanism because, of course, no one would ever violate them. They are putting the enforcement mechanism right in there, but that's a new
just like
step.
they did in Texas with abortion.
Yeah, but this is a great new development, and they're really advancing the technology. If you get any help paying the fine, we punch you.
Right.
Wow,
There's a
all right.
podcast guy named Brian Tyler Cohen who has a podcast called No Lie with BTC.
Oh yes, okay, I've seen his tweets.
New Iowa Republicans have introduced a bill that would put government-installed cameras in every single classroom to live stream school activities for parents to spy on teachers and children at all times of the day. I guess
Perfect.
that goes along with Oklahoma, so this way you can collect the evidence for your $10,000 fine.
$10,000, or
And plus, you can count the number of kids.
right. Roy Moore, very excited about
10,000
this
times 26.
Yeah, Roy Moore now can. This is just essentially free porn for Roy Moore, of course. No one will mind other strangers peeking in on their kids or finding out what their kids look like or sound like or what they're wearing that day.
Right.
And kids will definitely not tamper with the cameras.
Absolutely not. So update, the National Butterfly Center on the Texas
Oh.
border is closing for the immediate future, says the Houston Chronicle, after
Can't close in the
conspiracy-fueled
past.
threats against the center escalated in recent days.
Butterfly threats. The socialist butterflies? Communists?
Yeah. These are NSC
Antifa?
butterflies, I suppose.
All right. I think, what? The
They were
story is-
QAnon stuff, linking the center to sex trafficking.
right, because butterflies are very hot.
Right.
What?
The Butterfly Center has been the target of far-right conspiracy theories for years
why not?
after the sanctuary in 2017 sued the Trump administration to build a border wall through their 100-acre nature preserve.
Does the Butterfly Center just want to return to normal, pre-pandemic normal?
Yes,
Maybe we should let them. Why aren't we enforcing that against QAnon people?
that's a good question. So
$10,000
this is
to
a
anybody who
favorite
does it.
QAnon thing. Online trolls led by Brian Colfage, the head of the allegedly fraudulent We Build a Wall fundraising campaign,
No, it's fraudulent.
falsely claim there were dead bodies and rampant sex trade at the sanctuary.
They look like butterflies. That's the dead
Yeah,
bodies.
We Build a Wall. Wasn't that
It's a
Steve
caterpillar
Bannon?
massacre.
Wasn't he like convicted for that?
I don't know. I've lost track. Ask Brandy.
Yeah. Falsely claimed there were dead bodies and rampant sex trade at the sanctuary, but the situation escalated over the past 2 weeks, starting with a confrontation between Mariana Trevino-Wright, the center's executive director, and Kimberly Lowe, a GOP congressional candidate from Virginia.
What? What
Lowe
are you doing
approached
there?
the facility and demanded to see illegals crossing on rafts.
But we don't have any.
Right?
So what are
and
we
when
going to show
Trevino
you?
Wright refused, the candidate began filming on a phone and accused her of being okay with children being sex trafficked and raped and murdered. So I'll have to
Okay.
go look up Kimberly Lowe and see
I
where
guess
she's
so.
running.
Now Kimberly Lowe is telling you that there is evidence of children being sexually abused on her video camera. So maybe
Well,
you
Trevino
should
Wright
check
swiped
her
at the
out.
phone and a scuffle ensued. And speaking of endangering children, as Lowe left the facility, Trevino Wright said the woman nearly ran over her son.
Sure, because kids.
Because we're protecting kids.
Yeah. I guess she's just got child porn all over her camera.
3 days.
So, all right. You might ask if you live in Lowe's district, whatever that is. I have no idea. I've never heard of her. Why are you spending all your time in, where's the sanctuary? Texas? New Mexico?
On the border.
All right. I mean, there's a lot of border. So, I don't know. I don't know where they keep the butterflies these days. Leave the people alone. They're not sex trafficking. It's butterflies. And I don't know what to tell you. But
so there's Spelunky, a concerted attack by Steve Bannon and Associates, which has already provoked stochastic terrorism in El Paso and Washington, D.C., is directed at us and has been since 2019. Yeah. It's escalating radically as part of their MAGA midterm election strategy and puts us in a very dangerous position. So that's in the Houston Chronicle. I think it's worth noting.
Yes.
There's all sorts of local stuff that's like really bad, and it's making a great case for why local journalism is so important.
Yeah. Well, as we started in the earlier part of the show, when we identify terrorist leaders who inspire terrorism and acts of terrorism and others, I guess they got to get wiped out. And if you know where Steve Bannon is,
but you're not advocating violence. Let's be clear, you two.
I'm advocating law enforcement kinetic actions by law enforcement.
So, on a happier note,
yes.
Again, continuing with our lightning round theme here, Mark Zuckerberg just lost $24 billion overnight.
That's
as Meta stock drops 22% in after-hours trading.
Meta has stock?
Yeah, I don't know why. I don't know what made the stock drop.
I didn't know. I don't know what makes the stock. What Meta?
As it's well known in New York, he'll just make it back on volume.
Right. Well, yeah, he doesn't notice, and it doesn't matter to him, and it's all paper. But okay, good, fine. Him and the Spotify guy can get together and have a drink with masks on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Wow. All right. Well, that's a lot. Where's the? Did you put the butterfly thing in? There it is. I see it.
Yeah, Houston Chronicle story.
All right. I'll check into it, and I want to find out who Lowe is and where is she and all of that stuff. In jail, I hope. But
so Benjamin Dreyer makes an astute observation about the search for a Supreme Court justice that Joe Biden is undergoing. He says, correct me if I have this wrong,
you do.
But apparently there can be only one single solitary person in the entire United States qualified to ascend to the Supreme Court, and that person can't possibly be a black woman. Do I get the point?
Yes, and you are wrong. But you knew that. You were setting yourself
but
up.
Soldado O'Brien says, yes, sir, and if she is black, then it was a quota hire. And the next 85 justices can be white again. I don't know if I did this yesterday, but I think it belongs in a lightning round.
Well, it does. That's fine. We can do it again. And I was struck by that yesterday and wondering why nobody remembers that somehow Clarence Thomas was the only guy qualified to sit in the seat that previously occupied by a black man, but that wasn't any kind of a thing. Nobody? No? Okay.
Right. So Ben Dreyer says, thank you, Soldad. You know how bad I am at math, particularly quotas. And Soldad says, well, look, my shorthand is basically one black lady for every 60 old white dudes, and that basically works out.
They're holding the line on it then.
Right.
Good. Okay. Anyway, any other people struck by lightning that you know?
I don't know. So I'm going to finish today's segment with an actual article. This one's by E.J. Dionne, and it's called Democrats Need to Challenge the GOP's Politics of Evasion on Trump. I think they also need to challenge exactly what's going on in these local presentations. Even if they don't actually, in the light of day, with people paying attention, pass, it's important for people to know what folks are doing. That is to say, what Republicans are trying to pass, the camera laws in Iowa and the Oklahoma, $10,000 fine stuff. People need to know that this is what's going on. We're not saying the Republican Party is extreme. We're saying they are doing these things. These are the things that they are doing. If you decide that they're extreme, well, that's your decision. But I'm telling you what they're doing, and they'll deny it. And go to them. Make them defend what they're doing. And that's what E.J. Dionne is saying about Trump. Make them defend this.
Okay.
Right? The Republican Party, people like John Thune are saying things like, okay, well, you have all this evidence and you've compiled a terrific story about how things almost went off the rails, but they didn't, and that's really the important thing. No, that's not the important thing. The important thing is how easy it happened and how you're doing almost nothing to prevent it from happening again. And what do you say about that? What do you say about that next time? What do you say about the fact that Trumpers are being installed at Secretary of State positions, at least running for them, and election boards. You got QAnon people in there.
Yes.
And school boards. You got QAnon people in there. What are you doing about that? And don't run from it and say, well, it didn't happen.
I never heard of QAnon. I don't know what it is. I didn't read the tweet.
Right. Yeah. Now, he says, the urgent need to shake a widespread complacency about our governing institutions has been brought home by the work of journalists in the House Select Committee. Trump said the subversive part out loud on Sunday when he declared his Vice President Mike Pence could have overturned the election. This acknowledged outright what Trump's goal was, his real goal. The day before, Trump dangled pardons. In a rerun of his eagerness to use mobs, he called for the biggest protest we've ever had. So why are Democrats not shouting from the rooftops about the need to protect democracy? One reason political consultants advance, democracy issues are a tough sell with most voters. That's why I hate political consultants.
Yeah. Democracies are a tough sell with voters.
Making democracy a front and center issues in competition with the malaise people feel over the economy, even if there's a lot of good news about the economy. Right.
So you got
Stephanie Cutter, a longtime Democratic consultant who worked in the Obama administration, said in 2022 the threat of Trump will not be enough to make suburban women vote Democratic. So we're living in a classic case of political consultants' dilemma.
Yeah.
Candidates are urged to take a pass on important beneficial issues because they're secondary or tertiary to key voting groups. But the only chance such issues have of becoming salient is if politicians make it a BFD.
I guess so.
My words, not his.
Oh. Could be. Speaking of his words, is this? I haven't seen this article. Is this in our list or is it in your?
Oh, it may be at the
roundup?
end, but even if it's not, I will give it to you.
Yeah, please. Everyone will want to read it. You're right. Okay, that's a weird. What a weird thing for political consultants to tell you. I can't make people vote for stuff.
My focus group
voting.
said they're interested in the price of gas.
I mean, yeah, I guess you could do that. But. I don't know. It seems to me like their whole world is centered around voting and getting people to vote. And for them to say, nobody's interested in voting. Like, okay, that's really difficult to believe about you or to reconcile with the fact that I've hired you, for instance.
Right.
Okay.
And so, basically, part of this, I think the subtext here goes back to Brendan Nyhan and Seth Maskett. Right? You can't just write about this stuff because people don't read the stories. They read the headlines.
All right.
And our newspapers won't make dramatic headlines for various and sundry reasons.
Because of QAnon
they really could learn so much from the tabloids in New York.
That's true.
Who do such a great job of just capturing everything in a headline,
I'm sure they've spent their lives saying, we're never going to be as
Headless
dumb
man
as those
found
guys.
in topless bar. I mean, you don't need to read this story.
But you'll want to.
You'll want to, but it doesn't matter. You already know what's going on here, right? So the point is that if the politicians say it, the reporters are bound to cover it. So that's how you get it into the news. It's one thing that NSA was, trying to, some Republican-adjacent, Trump-adjacent people were trying to get this into the dialogue with the President of the United States and working real hard to get it into the Oval Office. But never really got there, and it's not really clear how and how nutty they were and this, that, and everything else. Although the same people were at the hotels at the same time planning a lot of this January 6th stuff. Okay, fine. That's one set of stories. And another is, I don't know, just going to pick a name out of random. Chris Murphy accuses Republican senators of hosting that, you have to cover that because he said it.
You think?
Well, it'd be covered here in Connecticut.
Well, yes, right.
Of course, we already vote Democratic, but still, if you had
feel better about it.
If you had Mark Kelly say something like that,
then
it would be covered in Arizona, where people need to hear it.
There's only 50 places where people could read those things. Well, okay, if you count, there's lots more. True. Territories, places that deserve to be states, but still a finite number. Get everybody to say it. Yeah, I can find me a delegate from Guam to say this. Right.
What Democrats have to get over, especially in the Senate, is the idea that we have to be nice to our Republican colleagues.
Please. Yeah, plenty of them are getting over that one by one.
They really have to get over that really fast. They've already gotten over it in the House.
Yeah.
And, the headline makers who are not the reporters, again, we've talked about this for years. The reporters often do a fine job, and the headline makers spoil it for everybody by doing really, really crappy headlines.
Why can't we put our QAnon people there?
We've already suggested some better headlines for today. I don't want to suggest more and get you into even more trouble.
Okay. Not that anybody would hear you saying it in your voice, but okay. I can just say like Ron Johnson. The guy brought me a crazy headline, and I didn't do anything about it. It's not my fault.
Right.
I've got a product idea now. I'm thinking of like when you mentioned Meta and all that. I'm thinking we need like augmented reality, like maybe those glasses. You remember the Google glasses? Those took off huge. But maybe an augmented reality program or a filter for your browser that rewrites the headlines. We will scan the news in the morning and rewrite the headlines for you. Read the news with our augmented reality filter on there, and it'll tell you what's really going on as you read the news. It'll never work, but
I just found out that there's an app for the weather which helps you make decisions better. Someone sent me a copy of it, for example.
You mean really?
Yeah, This one's pretty funny. It came out of a comment that
there is an app for the weather, Greg.
Yeah, that one of my friends on Twitter, David Perry, had noted that wherever he is, it says it's minus 12, and then the app says, but it feels like minus 12.
Yes.
And he said, well, that's great because it's a dry cold.
All right.
Right? Everybody knows a dry cold isn't as bad as like a regular cold.
I guess.
And I said, well, actually, what it should say is it's minus 12 degrees, and it feels like just like you think it should feel, you idiot.
Pretty much like, the negative thing should tell you what's going on.
But that answer, somebody said, well, you should write code for that. But there is one.
Well, okay. I should
this
do it for headlines.
This one is 40 degrees, feels like 40. And then the comment is, sorry, this rain isn't strong enough to wash your sins away.
Oh.
And I just wonder if every weather, report has something along those lines, which would be quite good and would make my day.
Yeah. Well, there's got to be a way to do this news filter thing. And I imagine if you sold it for $9.99, I could eventually lose $24 billion overnight and not care.
Right. Anyway, that's my lightning round report for today. A little of this, a little of that.
That's in the weather report too. The lightning, I appreciate it. Okay, we got a little bit of everything. I'm going to do something. Maybe when we return, I'll read you the story. But you mentioned briefly QAnon weirdos being installed at the elections boards. I tweeted that one around when I saw it this morning, and it's a county in Georgia, and I did tweet it around with a KITM hashtag, because KITM listeners will be able to guess what county in Georgia had just installed a QAnon as the head of its elections board, and the answer is it's Spalding County, which we were just talking about the last couple of days, and we've brought up before that they just swapped the elections boards out. Oh, Democrats won and dominate the election board, and they're allowing people to vote on Sunday after church, and Democrats are making use of that. Well, poof, a new bill in the Republican-controlled state legislature says we can fire and replace those underperforming county elections boards with anyone we want. Democrats out, QAnon in, and it's all legal, supposedly. So there you go. It's they haven't taken very long, not just replacing Democrats with Republicans, but replacing them with QAnon adherents who have Facebook rap sheets a mile long. So I'll read you the article about that next. Thanks, Greg.
All right, so that wraps up my week.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It's Thursday. You're done for the week.
I'm done.
All right, and we'll see you on Monday, 1 or 2 days closer to the eagerly anticipated 2/22/22, which I heard recently is also a Tuesday. So it's going to be a super 2 event, and we'll just start counting down from there. Thanks, Greg.
All right.
I appreciate it. That had nothing to do with anything whatsoever. The rest of your show did, though. Appreciate it. And now more on Rudy Giuliani, I guess, to waste our time between now and the break. Actually, there's a little longer than I thought there. So maybe what I can do is you can relax and enjoy yourself, and I'll flip back to that QAnon story. It's from the Daily Beast. I'll be able to cram in about half of it before we go. He's head of a Georgia election board and fixated on QAnon. Do we think that headline is strong enough? I don't know what my filter would do with that one. Ben Johnson of Spalding County dabbles in election conspiracies even as he holds power over voting. And who better to make the fair calls about what happened in an election than a QAnon adherent? Justin Glaw, writing this for Daily Beast. And, register for free to start reading it. All right, well, watch this. What I'm going to do instead is register for Pocket and read it from there. Sorry, I can't pay everybody. The Republican chair of a rural Georgia election board, which has the power to restrict or expand access to voting, call for audits and investigations, and why would a QAnon weirdo do that, right, into alleged voter fraud, and certify election results, or stomp their feet and walk away and refuse to do it, for instance. This new person is a QAnon-fixated election conspiracy theorist, the Daily Beast and the rest of the world has learned. Appointed to his position last year, Ben Johnson heads the 5-member Spalding County Board of Elections and Registration, which was recently taken over by Republicans as part of a broader GOP effort across the state to secure power over elections. We don't mean by that they were recently taken over because Republicans were elected to these positions. Democrats were appointed. No one's elected. They're appointed. Democrats were appointed to these positions. The Republican legislature decided to pass a bill that says if we don't like certain counties' composition of their boards, we can replace them. And that's what they've done here. Johnson's fellow board members know him as a polite and capable chair, even if they sometimes disagree with his conservative politics, current and former colleagues have said. But his personal Twitter account tells a more complicated story. It's actually not complicated at all. He's a nut. Since at least September of 2020, Johnson has been tweeting credulously about QAnon, the far-right conspiracy theory that Satan-worshipping pedophiles control Hollywood and the Democratic Party. Of course, sure, why not? And even as QAnon adherents have sought office nationwide, the situation in Georgia was alarming to experts and advocates focused on election integrity in the era of baseless stop-the-steal panic about non-existent voter fraud. Well, this will be interesting to continue with after the break. It'll be even more interesting because I pressed the wrong button and now it's too late to correct it, so I'm playing the 2-minute break song for 1 minute's worth of break. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. This is how, if you were waiting to find out live, how I was going to fix the mistake of having set the 2-minute break music in motion when we were only going to have a 1-minute break. This is the answer. Live on the radio now. Okay, so it's going to make for a mess in our cleanup operation and in our editing later, but such is life. Nothing we could do about that. All right, let's continue with the story we are literally stealing from the poor folks at the Daily Beast who just want to make a living like everyone else, and we're refusing to contribute to their ability to do so. How much does a subscription to the Daily Beast actually cost? Let's check into that before if you really want to make yourself feel guilty about this thing. In order to continue reading the story legally, I guess, or morally and ethically, we would have to set up an account and we'd get 30 days of unlimited access. No credit card is required. How would we unlock this article? I don't know. But first you got to join with one of the other social media giants that is also stealing your money, and I suggest that they get rid of that as well. That's it. I'm not subscribing because I'm protesting the fact that I have to sign in using my account from one of the other social media giants that I don't like, and one of whose owners lost $24 billion yesterday. So why would I trust my information to him? He just lost $24 billion. What do you think is going to happen to my information? Is that like a real excuse? Can I use that? That doesn't really work, does it? Anyway, back to the QAnon lunatic who has been installed as head of the Spalding County, Georgia election board. Interesting that his fellow board members saw him as a pleasant enough, normal guy, but then they found out that he was using his First Amendment rights to express some pretty profoundly weird and stupid things, and now we know more about him. And somehow he'll scream censorship, but he's still saying these things, so I don't know what the censorship is. Anyway, so since at least September of 2000, Johnson has been tweeting credulously about QAnon, and you know who they are. Even as QAnon adherents have sought office nationwide, the situation in Georgia was alarming to experts and advocates focused on election integrity in the era of baseless Stop the Steal panic about non-existent voter fraud. People like Johnson, quote, may be more willing to steal the next election if they believe that the last election was stolen. It wasn't. Rick Hazen, an expert on election law at the University of California, Irvine, told the Daily Beast in an email. We hear from him all the time, but maybe it's because we read the same newspapers all the time, and they always just call him. And I also, that's not even a particularly good quote, I don't think. They may be more willing to steal the next election if they believe the last election was stolen. I guess that could be true. Of course, they may be more willing to steal the next election if they're completely crazy and don't know reality from fantasy. That also might lead them to be more likely to do something dumb and illegal next time. Johnson, who is the CEO of a technology company that does IT work for the county. Oh, okay. I'm glad they got around to the fact that it was doing the county. I mean, that's an interesting conflict of interest, maybe in itself. But like being CEO of a technology company that does IT work, I should hope so. It's a technology company. But all right. Well, all right. What kind of technology? It could be biological technology, but this is information technology. They do IT work for the county, and he also draws pay from the county for doing this. Maybe it's unpaid. I don't know. Anyway, he didn't respond to repeated requests for comment for this story. Evidence pointing to a bizarre fixation on QAnon is all over Johnson's Twitter timeline, which might make people who engage his IT company nervous, and maybe they want to quit doing business with him. Like, if you're not grounded in reality, I don't think you can fix our internet, so get lost. Evidence pointing to a bizarre fixation on QAnon is all over Johnson's Twitter timeline. On September 23rd, 2020, he responded to a CBS News piece about QAnon by writing, "You should ask the president, who is Q?" Now, I know that that's actually indicative of like being involved in craziness, but I guess all by itself, if you've never heard of QAnon, you'll say, what's wrong with that? I'm just asking questions. But okay, you should ask the president, who in September of 2020 was Donald Trump, allegedly. That's what he demands of CBS. You should ask the president who is Q, because he wanted to platform the QAnon cause nationally. In October of 2020, still under the Trump presidency, Johnson tweeted at Dilbert creator Scott Adams and the now suspended account of former General Mike Flynn, quote, "Hate to say it, but a hell of a lot of the information dropped by Q has turned out to be accurate," Johnson wrote. And, of course, you should hate to say it because none of the information dropped by Q has turned out to be accurate. You should hate to say it because then people will know that you are dumb and they shouldn't hire your IT firm, much less put you in charge of voting in Spalding County, Georgia. That same month, following a congressional resolution condemning QAnon, Johnson speculated that by demanding a roll call vote, Democrats, quote, wanted the names of Q supporters in Congress. Johnson has also posted a meme about the difference between Antifa and QAnon, which broadly paints the two as good and evil, respectively. Sure, why not? In December of 2020, Johnson again tweeted at Adams regarding a claim that YouTube had banned election fraud content by saying that, quote, some of the Q sites already have a class action lawsuit, and speculating that a far-right YouTube network could join to fight alleged censorship. And, they've launched about 19 different far-right YouTube networks. None of them are interesting or popular. And I would venture to guess that almost none of the Q sites have, in fact, bothered to do any work to file a class action lawsuit. So once again, more of the information dropped by Q turning out to be super accurate. None of this by itself, if you don't already have a background in QAnon, I guess is particularly damning, which might be why officials responsible for the Spalding County Board of Elections are like, I don't see what's so wrong about any of this. But, this weird following around of the Q people and just saying, I just want to ask the question, who is Q, and ask the president, and the Q info drops are right, it is very indicative of people who are probably already too far gone for rescue. But yeah, you should definitely, I mean, it's a red flag. And unfortunately, you know, this only speaks in the code that I guess you'd understand if you have some background in seeing this stuff before, and you know how QAnon people, you know what they're doing, who they are, and the way they speak to one another. But to somebody without that background, they're just like, this doesn't say anything incriminating to me. Too bad. Well, anyway, you have the background, so I can tell you, and you can explain it. If you're near Spalding County, Georgia, give somebody else the background that they need to know that this is wrong. On the final day of the year, that's December 31st, Johnson tweeted at a right-wing radio host referencing discredited election conspiracist Jovan Hutton Pulitzer, who I think has had the name called out before on this show, asking if Pulitzer could work his paper Q magic. Pulitzer has claimed, this is parenthetical, has claimed he has proprietary technology that can detect the presence of bamboo in paper, indicating that some mail-in ballots used in 2020 came from China. You remember that being a prominent feature of the Cyber Ninjas fake audit in Arizona. So what is he asking? Johnson tweeted at Pulitzer, asking if Pulitzer could work his paper Q magic. I don't know what makes it Q magic, except that Q people are more likely probably to believe in this stupid bamboo theory. But I guess that should be enough for you if you're in the Spalding County area, that the new head of the Spalding County Board of Elections believes in the bamboo fiber theory that's been discredited in the stupid Cyber Ninjas fake audit. You now have one of the guys who believed, no, that was real and was a good idea as the head of your elections board. So good luck having a free and fair election there. Let's see. Where were we? Oh, Georgia's Republican Secretary of State, we're still in the parenthetical comment here about Pulitzer. Brad Raffensperger has said that Pulitzer provided, quote, no evidence of widespread voter fraud in the state. But, you know, I don't know. This is an opportunity for Brad Raffensperger to speak up. Has national hero and savior Brad Raffensperger said anything about the QAnon weirdo who's been installed as the head of the Spalding County Election Board? I mean, I'm sure Spalding isn't the biggest county in Georgia or anything, and it might not necessarily warrant, you know, top of mind notice for everybody. Maybe the Secretary of State of Georgia would have noticed and have something to say about that, but I don't know. Let's search around. I mean, I guess you could do the Joe Rogan thing and search, has Brad Raffensperger said anything about, oh yeah, I'm just got to spell his name correctly, Spurger. Raffensperger said anything about, what's his name? Oh, well, see, the guy's name is like too common, right? Wasn't it Johnson? So, anyway, what's his first name? This Johnson. Hey, this Johnson. What's this guy's name? Ben Johnson. I guess there's a million possibilities for Ben Johnson. But anyway, I don't know. And maybe I'll throw in Spalding and see if anything comes up here. Let's see. We have the story we read the other day about Georgia Republicans purging black Democrats from the county boards. Here's another one from Election Law Blog. He's head of a Georgia election board and fixated on QAnon from just 3 hours ago. So responding to the same news, I think. Ben Johnson is the head of a Georgia election board from Noledia. I don't know what that is. But yeah, so far, nothing that I can see from Brad Raffensperger saying, no, this guy ought not to be involved in this, and I will use my power as Secretary of State to, if I can't bounce him, minimize the impact that he has on elections. Nope. He's perfectly fine with it because ultimately he'll probably hand elections to Republicans, and as long as Brad Raffensperger doesn't have to get his hands dirty doing it, he might be just fine with it. So what else have we got? Johnson has also displayed mild skepticism about Q. So he's off the hook. Tweeting in December 2020, whether Q is real or not, it's keeping otherwise unproductive people moving largely in the same direction. I don't even know what that's supposed to mean, but I guess that's skepticism. But more often, he has appeared to embrace the theory. In January 2021, Johnson tweeted at a man who disparaged QAnon, writing, "More people know they have been ripped off because of Q and Anons than would without it." Okay, and I assume they mean ripped off by the results of the election. More people know that they were cheated in some way because Q and the QAnons, because they're so enlightening. In May of 2021, Johnson tweeted simply, "We are all Q," which is a pretty late date to still be doing that. Logan Strain, a QAnon expert previously known as Travis View, okay, why not, and host of the QAnon Anonymous podcast, the QAnon Anonymous podcast, so it's QAnonymous Anonymous podcast, told the Daily Beast that Johnson's tweets about the conspiracy show a deep involvement in it. Johnson was deep into the QAnon community, knew the in-group language, and regularly read the Q drops, Strain said, after reviewing Johnson's tweets, adding that the Republican election official has referenced Q drops from as far back as 2018. If you weren't versed in what was going on in this show, or you were just beamed here through a time machine from some point in the past, you would have no idea what's going on. As chair of the elections board, Johnson has significant power. He and his board can regulate and decide matters regarding public comment at board meetings, possibly increasing instances of far-right conspiracists commenting at meetings, according to Zakota Espinoza, a spokesperson for Fair Fight, the voting rights advocacy group run by Georgia Democrat Stacey Abrams. Espinoza said that early vote locations, the number of ballot drop boxes, see, QAnon people should love drop boxes, right? But they apparently hate them. The number of ballot drop boxes, precinct changes and locations, voter registration challenges, hiring and training of poll workers, processing mail ballots and applications, and certifying the county's election results all fall under the purview of the board. So think about the ways that you can screw with voting and vote totals that way if you're a QAnon believer, right? There won't be any early voting. There's no more drop boxes. We're going to find out which precincts are heavily Democratic and change the place that they vote on the last day and not notify anybody. Or we're going to train poll workers, but we're going to screen them for QAnon beliefs and hire only QAnon weirdos and just say anybody that looks like they might vote Democratic, however you define that, you should just immediately accuse them of being a pedophile and tackle them and tase them, and you're totally allowed to do that. You know, could be anything. Johnson's beliefs in QAnon and other conspiracies have raised alarms with outside experts and local voting rights advocates and Democrats. In fact, the whole previous paragraph was a quote from just such a person. But I guess there's even more of them who are upset about this. That's good. But they are part of a pattern of increasingly radicalized GOP that supports the big lie and related conspiracies. Still, one of Johnson's colleagues on the board expressed befuddlement at his apparent embrace of the most notorious conspiracy theory there is. I guess he's just not who he presented himself to me to be. Jim O'Brien, one of the two Democrats on the board, told the Daily Beast. That is some sentence. He's not who he presented himself to me to be. But it makes sense. Since at least 2013, Johnson has been active on Twitter, posting about local GOP events and tweeting at conservative politicians while mentioning Spalding County. That's all normal. But in 2020, like many Republicans in the county and nationwide, he became obsessed with false claims of widespread voter fraud and mishandling of the election. And what a dream come true for somebody who falls under the spell of this nonsense to say, if they would just let me be in charge of elections around here, I'd straighten that out. I'd take those people who are doing all the fraud and the satanic pedophile blood drinking and I'd chuck them right out on their ear and I'd make sure we got it right. And then suddenly there's a mechanism passed by the Republican state legislature that says, any crazy-ass MFer who wants to be the head of a elections board but will swear fealty to the Republican Party, speak up. It doesn't matter if it's a Democratic county and the board is run by Democrats. We'll throw them all off with our newly awarded authority, which we awarded to ourselves, and put you in. And like it's a dream come true. It would be like all of a sudden I'm being, you know what? Ivermectin and horse paste is terrific. I should be appointed to the medical review board that decides on licensing issues for doctors. And then poof, you do it. No, terrible idea. Bad news for Georgia and the world. What else have we got here in this story? There's more craziness. Johnson's tweets cover myriad election conspiracies from events that occurred in other states to his own false claims of fraud in his hometown of Griffin. A little more than a week after the 2020 election, Johnson tweeted about a bizarre post-election incident that occurred in which local Republicans rooted through a dumpster at the county elections office in search of evidence of discarded ballots. Johnson tweeted at disgraced Trump lawyer L. Lynn Wood that day, saying he had, quote, the source video for ballots found in a dumpster in Spalding County. Oh boy, the case cracker. When law enforcement arrived to collect this alleged evidence, they determined the envelopes did not actually contain any ballots, according to the responding agency. You might have heard of or guessed at the existence of the responding agency. They are allegedly known as the Spalding County Sheriff's Office. I'm just trying myself out as a conspiracy theorist podcaster from now on. Anyway, they didn't respond to any questions about the incident. Although, why, I'm not sure. So that was pretty interesting. I rooted through the dumpster to find evidence of discarded ballots. I have found envelopes in there, and I videotaped them. I didn't bother opening them to see whether there were any ballots in there. I'm rooting in the garbage for ballots. I found some ballot-adjacent materials, but it was too far, a step too far, a bridge too far. Disgusting to me, physically, having rooted through the dumpster, the idea of opening the envelopes to see if there's anything in them. That seems like a crucial last step in your investigation. But they have video, so there is that. No member of the election board or the Spalding County Board of Commissioners responded to requests for comment for the story, nor did the Spalding County GOP, which appointed Johnson to the elections board, or the Georgia Republican Party. In February of 2021, a year ago, Johnson tweeted, "Election fraud is not a myth," with the Italygate hashtag. Some of the craziest stuff. Referencing a debunked conspiracy theory that originated from an obscure Florida group purporting votes were changed by Italian security officials. Remember, they were using Italian military satellites to do it. What's her name? Sidney Powell was very much into this. She cornered Ezra Cohen Watnick, or Watnick Cohen, whatever his name is, on a plane somewhere and said, you got to tell your boss, and you got to help me get in touch with Mike Flynn and he'll vouch for me. And they're using military satellites to change votes. And even Ezra thought she was nuts. And then after that, Trump said, maybe we should make a special counsel. Anyway, so there's that. He uses the Italygate hashtag. Johnson has also claimed that Raffensperger knowingly lied when he said there was no widespread voter fraud in the 2020 election. Raffensperger, of course, helping the guy out by saying absolutely nothing about him now. This is a guy who said you knowingly lied, Brad. Maybe you'd like to go on record about this thing? What I'm finding out is there's a whole other side to him that I didn't know. O'Brien, the Spalding County Democrat, told the Daily Beast. Dr. Yoshunda Jones, a local voting rights advocate and business consultant in Griffin, said Johnson's extreme beliefs are actually a feature, not a bug, for many Republicans in the area. A lot of them very much do feel the same way that he does. Jones told the Daily Beast, they're all mostly big lie supporters. A lot of them are involved with QAnon as well. O'Brien said there's no obvious legal recourse for removing a potential QAnon supporter from the elections board. Instead, O'Brien simply shows up to election board meetings outnumbered. The private me says, no, he shouldn't be in that position. The public me is, I plan to thwart him the best that I can, O'Brien said of Johnson. And when I look around, I see a lot of Republican legislators that are holding down their positions, and they're conspiracy theorists too. Good point. A little bit hopeless there. But I don't know. At least we got to raise some awareness of it and do something. I guess you could always say, maybe there's no legal recourse, but maybe involuntary commitment to a mental institution would work pretty well for these guys. But yeah, good luck getting judges to help you, especially there in Spalding County, I would guess. Seems problematic. Okay, well, that's surprising and upsetting. So we have that, which is nice. By the way, back to the Butterfly Center on the Texas border, quite correct. The piece, you found what? Okay, Greg found, this was the one that he was talking about that he said, I read somewhere and couldn't find it, but now he's found it. All right, that's good news. That was the one about parents who were reluctant to vaccinate their kids, some of whom were, generally vaccine resistant, some of whom were genuinely COVID vaccine resistant, and some of whom were like, well, I just want to see how it goes for the first couple of days, and if nobody has any trouble, I'll get my kid vaccinated. Okay, good, thank you. We'll have that source, and we'll share it with you. The other story that he had shared earlier, the Butterfly, Butterfly Center on the Texas border, having been confronted by a weirdo from Virginia, which we don't really know why she was there. It was Kimberly Lowe, a candidate for U.S. Congress. Perhaps you've heard of them. But yeah, let me see. Anyway, where's she from? I was sort of interested in where she was located and where she was going to be running. And the answer is she's running for Congress in the 9th District in Virginia, which I assume probably won't change much even with redistricting coming up. It currently represented by somebody I've never heard of before, but obviously a Republican. That's the far southwestern corner of Virginia down by Tennessee and Kentucky. And so that also would be the congressional district where, what's his name, who wrote the stupid bill, the CRT ban bill. What was it? Ren Williams? Is that right? That's the guy who wrote the bill that said they have to stop teaching CRT and they got to teach more about the first Abraham Lincoln, Frederick Douglass debate. Same area. That's what we're talking about. Far southwestern Virginia. Currently represented, just to give you some idea of what's going on down there. By the way, that also is the corner of the state which is largely credited for, I don't know, maybe not that particular corner, but the reddest part of the state, certainly. And the reddest parts of the states are the ones credited with turning out superlative numbers for Glenn Youngkin, such that he was able to defeat Terry McAuliffe, despite the fact that the biggest population centers in the state all voted overwhelmingly for McAuliffe. And Youngkin was able to eke out a 1.5 point win statewide because the Trumpiest counties in the state voted for Youngkin in greater numbers than they even turned out for Trump, which is a little bit hard to believe because Youngkin's kind of a drip and Trump is Trump. And I guess if you were an election conspiracy theorist, you would say there's no way that more people turned out to vote for Youngkin than turned out to vote for Trump. But I don't know that that's necessarily, that's not necessarily the way I would put it. It happens to be true. But I guess if, for instance, if there was a contest between, you can vote for both, just which one do you like more? They would say, no, we like Trump more than Youngkin. It's just there was nothing else going on, and we were whipped up into a frenzy, and there were no other Republicans to vote for, or no other people that we think Trump would have supported for us to vote for other than Youngkin, so we showed up and did our bit for Youngkin. It's not necessarily the case that the vote total shows that Youngkin is more popular even than Trump in these areas. But it might lead you to wonder about things like that. Anyway, I was going to say the reason it's indicative of what's going on there, not only with Ren Williams and his crazy bill, but she's running for Congress, but it's already a Republican district. So she's running to unseat Morgan Griffith, who I think is in his first term. And, I'm sorry. He's been in since 2011, but has been in since 2011, having defeated the previous 14-term incumbent Democrat at the time, actually, Rick Boucher. So, I mean, there was a switchover. That place was going to become Trumpy Republican at some point, it's true, but they just were electing the same conservative for a long time. Anyway, Morgan Griffith has done so much to distinguish himself since 2011 that we all thought he was in his first term. She's going to run to unseat him, though. So that tells you a little bit about how right-wing crazy she may be, if the butterfly story didn't.
Hi, I'm Scott Anderson, the guy that writes the daily summary for this show, Kagro in the Morning. Thank you to everyone that supports this show. Many of you send donations through PayPal, Patreon, Square Cash, Radio Public, and so on. Some of you write your own essays and send them in, or read articles with your own commentary. We appreciate it. Now, some of you are listening to this and thinking, I'd like to help, but isn't there something I could do that wouldn't require money or effort? Why, yes, there is. You can just like us. On Daily Kos, they call it the recommend button. YouTube has a thumbs up. There are hearts and likes and love buttons. Tap our love button. Tap our love button every day. Share our shows and summaries on Facebook and Twitter, YouTube and iTunes, Stitcher and Amazon. Most of these places allow you to write a review, so a sentence or two would be great. Recommend us to social media, or tell your friends to listen to the show. You aren't just helping us, you're helping them find their new favorite thing to listen to. You could change the world. So thank you in advance from me and everybody else in the world.
All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Networks Radio. I feel like maybe we want to take a quick look. Maybe we'll see how long it takes to run through this other story on the Butterfly Reserve and the confrontation with Kimberly Lowe, Republican challenging a sitting Republican for the craziest-ass Republican congressional district in Virginia. But I have this piece here from the Roanoke Times. Southwest Virginia congressional candidate talks about altercation in Texas. Luke Weir, doing the reporting for this piece, doesn't look overly long. Bumps along the campaign trail during a trip to Texas last week have not derailed Kimberly Lowe's Republican bid for U.S. Congress in Virginia's 9th District, she said this week, except for the bump of Texas not being in Virginia's 9th District. But focusing all of our attention elsewhere, just, one of always abundant supply of, particularly of Republicans running for office, but running for an office that, one, they have no business running for yet, and two, running a campaign that's basically a fantasy camp of national issues that really shouldn't be of any interest to somebody running anew in the 9th District in Virginia. You should be maybe focusing on issues of importance here in Virginia. National issues, to be sure, because you're running for Congress, but that's just also because you have no business running for Congress. People should start locally, but whatever. It doesn't matter, even if they start locally. If she ran for County Board of Supervisors down there, she'd be running on abortion and immigration anyway. So, in her world, yes, you are doing your job running as a Republican candidate for Congress in southwestern Virginia by spending your time at the Texas border. She also picks up this gem from our both sides world of punditry and reporting. I'm getting attacks from the left and the right, said Lowe, who is challenging U.S. Representative Morgan Griffith. So I must be doing something right. Or I'm just so crazy that nobody likes me, either left or right. Getting attacks from the left because she's an imbecile and she believes that satanic vampire pedophiles are running the world and that she's going to find the proof at the Butterfly Reserve in Texas. She's getting attacks from the right because she's looking to unseat a right-wing Republican congressman who's saying, I think she's just a jerk and is wasting her time and her life. Ah, there you go. Attacks from the left and the right. Accusations of assault, how about that, arose last Friday surrounding a scuffle involving Lowe and officials at the National Butterfly Center. She's gone to Texas to punch the butterfly people. A wildlife sanctuary located at the United States southern border in Mission, Texas. The center has been the focus of right-wing based conspiracy theories, one claiming the center is involved in sex trafficking. There's no trafficking at all and no sex, but there are butterflies, and so therefore, yada yada reasons. Video of the altercation previously available on Lowe's campaign's social media was removed due to a police investigation, which has since cleared her, believe it or not, of wrongdoing. She said. Police in Texas did not respond to requests for an account of what happened at the sanctuary. I'm getting death threats and everything else from this crazy stuff, Lowe said. Press from everywhere has been contacting me. No, I doubt. Oh, who do we think would be giving her death threats? Butterflies? Caterpillars, perhaps? The chrysalis industrial complex? I don't think so. The resulting coverage in local and national media caused Lowe to be excluded from the We Stand America rally, a border security event that she drove from Virginia to attend with her children. Is that why she was in Texas? But by the way, what kind of rally name is that? We Stand America. United we stand? We stand united? We stand around and do nothing? No, We Stand America. We Stand America. I don't even know what that... okay, terrible name. It's about border security. There's no link, so I can't tell whether that's just a typo about the name or where it was. Anyway, so she drove from Virginia to attend this with her children. Why she didn't fly, I have no idea. Maybe she just didn't want to spend the money. It's a long drive, even from southwestern Virginia all the way to Texas. But anyway, how crazy is she? People who were holding a rally that was so poorly named that an idiot from Virginia would drive all the way with her kids to attend, and that would probably mean pulling them out of school to do as well. But I'm sure they're homeschooled, so it's fine. Even they wouldn't allow her to come to the rally. That is weird. They removed me from the event because of what I had done, which is assault people who like butterflies. What's cool is that shows I was making waves. I'm such a danger because I was exposing the truth of what's happening. This is Marjorie Trader Green times 10. Don't let this person anywhere near you. The event website. Oh, good. There is one. I'm going to go there and find out. Joe Rogan reporting live to you. What's the name of this event? Yeah, WeStandAmerica.com. All right. I mean, no website is actually coming up. I'm sure it'll eventually come here, but they're paying a good deal of money for some good hosting there. We Stand America. Yeah, it's about border security or whatever, but anyway, I guess I'm just like, who are the speakers here? Who would exclude this lunatic? Oh, all right. So Ted Nugent will be speaking, but not Kimberly Lowe. She's too crazy. I don't know any of the rest of these people. Here's Jonathan Dunn, a Blaze TV host. Heather Hobbs, spokesperson for the John Birch Society. Richard Mack, former sheriff / activist. Richard Mack, former sheriff. Mel K, just a woman by the name of Mel K, activist / speaker. Where do these people become famous? Dale Wilcox, litigator / speaker. Well, I know there's a list of speakers. You don't have to say they're / speakers. William Lionberger, and then a bunch of initials after his name. Frontline doctor / speaker. Chris Odette, Angel Dad. Yeah, I remember them. Maria, how many are there? People you don't know, okay? An Angel Mom, Maria Vega, Patrick Byrne. This is interesting. What's his credentials? Just says Patrick Byrne. Patrick Byrne. Then a guy who looks like another one who's just Sean Feucht. I don't know, Feucht, with no information about him except he's a little bit of an oddball looking guy, kind of like a blonde Kenny G going on here. Hey, there's Mike Flynn. So she's too crazy for Mike Flynn. She's too crazy for Ted Nugent. She's too crazy for Mel K. Anybody else that we know? No. Mark Fincham. Yeah, Arizona State Representative. I think he was heavily involved in the Cyber Ninjas thing. Don't know you. don't know. Yeah, so a bunch of unknown weirdos and a few known weirdos. Anybody else famous so we can give you some idea of what's going on here? No. A lot of no's here. And no. Okay, so that was a big waste of your time. So you can buy a ticket. How about that? Ooh, boy, I wonder how much she spent on her ticket. There's expensive tickets and there's cheapo tickets. And anyway, okay, so let's see. Other information here worth doing? No. All right, back to her confrontation then. Let's find out just how crazy she is. The event website said, illegals are beholden to their Marxist overlords. Wow. And advertised among its speakers was former National Security, I should have done this, Mike Flynn, who pleaded guilty in 2017 for making false statements to the FBI and was later pardoned by then President Donald Trump, and the rock and roll 2020 Republican candidate for president, Ted Nugent. Was he? I didn't even realize he ran for president. Okay, well, it's obviously a political attack, Lowe said of the Butterfly Center happenings, not even meaning her own attack on them. That's just smoke and mirrors to detract from what's really happening at the border. Meanwhile, the Butterfly Center closed over the weekend for what it said were credible threats from the United We Stand rally, which is interesting because they added United on that one. And it's just We Stand America. But even the writers here make the understandable mistake. It's uncomfortable to say it's called We Stand America. You feel like compelled to add a word or two there. As for her rejection from the 3-day border security rally, Lowe said, it tells me that those people are there for themselves, not to save the country. So everybody heard it from this woman here. Don't trust any of those people to save the country. They're just there for their power, and they're not there for the right reasons. She said people coming to cross the United States southern border represent a humanitarian problem that should receive bipartisan support. Meaning kill them all, I guess. It's not a safe journey, Lowe said. It's not humanitarian in any way, shape, or form. She said it is easier for people to cross into the United States illegally than it is for them to enter through legal methods. Well, maybe. It's just allowing anybody to come into the country or anybody to run for Congress. There has to be better immigration laws. Lowe is not Lowe's, the hardware store. Lowe is running against Griffith in a race to be decided in a June primary. Griffith is seeking his 7th term in Washington and hoping somebody will recognize him at some point and know who he is. Let's see. Griffith's campaign fundraising $278,000, whereas Lowe has raised about $28,000, according to data made available Tuesday from the Virginia Public Access Project. And she spent how much on that? Of that driving to Texas and not even being able to go to the event. Well, anyway, very special. If you live in that district, I think you know what to do. Anyway, just letting you know what's going on down there in the southwest corner of Virginia, getting crazier and crazier, and having a 7-term Republican congressman there is not conservative enough for them. They got to have someone even crazier. All right, let's see. Oh, yeah, speaking of public information in Virginia, or what was it that we said right at the end there? There was the disclosure about the campaign fundraising from the Virginia Public Access Project. I just wanted to make mention of this, where I got to scroll back in my own Twitter feed to find it, but I noticed somebody reporting yesterday, some enterprising person, probably a reporter, and if not, they should be a reporter, decided to use the standard public information acts here, the Freedom of Information Act, or the Virginia equivalent thereof, public records laws, etc., to make the request that this new snitch line that the Governor Youngkin has set up here for people to tattle on or make up stories about teachers or other staffers at the public schools who are doing something evil, like possibly teaching critical race theory or scheduling a test inconveniently or whatever it is that upsets you. And you make up a story and you can get them fired and put them on a do not hire list so that they lose their license and they can't work as a teacher in the Commonwealth of Virginia thereafter if things work the way they want them to go. And so somebody said, well, I'd like to see what are these tips, and let's make sure that they're not bizarre made up stuff, or that there's actual investigations being done before they start persecuting teachers. So they have asked that all of these tips, I am writing to request, somebody says here, who's the writer here? Maggie Reeder Thornton. Is that whose tweet I was reading? Yeah, it is. Tweeting for herself. So who is Maggie Thornton? Margaret Thornton, PhD. Let's see. Ameliorating school inequality at Princeton SPIA. And previously worked with Tom Perriello. So that's the Virginia connection, despite the fact that she's working with Princeton SPIA, which I don't know what that is, but let's go find out. We'll Joe Rogan this to death. I'll find out. What is Princeton SPIA? It is the Princeton School of Public and International Affairs. Okay, and that too would be of interest to Tom Perriello, of course, but I guess that's her connection. Maybe she is also originally from, yes, she says, always Southwest Virginia, and an LA Dodgers fan, so she has interests all over the map. Anyway, she wrote to the FOIA office in the governor's office also, I guess. Lots of offices here, but that's how it's identified here. The FOIA, Freedom of Information Act office, asking, hello, I am writing to please request all of the emails sent to helpeducation@governor.virginia.gov, in case you were wondering about that tip line and wanted to maybe make your own reports. Not suggesting that you do, but if you want to. helpeducation@governor.virginia.gov. So she says, I'm writing to request all the emails sent to this. Electronic records will suffice. Under Section 2.2-3700 of the Virginia Code, presumably, you have 5 days to respond. So I'm looking forward to hearing from you by then. And with thanks, Margaret Thornton. And they only have to respond. They don't have to give up all of the records inside of 5 days, but they will respond. And they did. I don't know if they made the deadline or not, but it says the requested records are being entirely withheld pursuant to Section 2.2-3705.7 as working papers and correspondence of the office of the governor. What does this mean here? She points out, it turns out now that the governor of Virginia is claiming that all the emails sent to the tip line are his own correspondence, private personal correspondence, or work product of his getting advice from his advisors, and therefore you're not allowed to see them. We'll see whether that's appealable and whether that stands up or how long it takes to straighten that out, but I just thought that was an interesting note too, and worthwhile for inclusion in our lightning round and in-depth looks back at the lightning round stories here today. Well, we still have Friday to go through all of these things. Let's see. I feel like we definitely covered that one. Oh, yeah. I meant to bring this up because I did notice yesterday. Is this the story from yesterday? Yeah. Tara Palmieri from Politico tweeting yesterday, scoop. And then the headline of her story, Trump considered blanket pardons for January 6th rioters before he left office. Remember that the news of the last couple of days is him dangling pardons at his rally speeches now. And Politico was reporting, well, we have evidence that he was considering these blanket pardons before he left office, to which I said, that feels like a duh moment. Like, didn't we know that? But again, I think that stuff was floated beforehand, and we all assumed that Trump was considering it, but maybe it was really somebody else writing that there ought to be pardons or suggesting that there should be pardons, but there was no evidence at the time, hard evidence that Donald Trump himself had said at some point, maybe I really should do this. I should consider. People were suggesting it. People made assumptions about what he would do, but there was never any evidence of it. But what it shows is pretty much when it was rumored that people were suggesting that to Trump, everybody was pretty sure, yeah, Trump would totally be interested in something like that. Now, would he do it? I don't know. it wasn't a matter of his saying, well, I don't think it would be proper or legal or the optics would be bad. I think the reason that he didn't pardon everybody from January 6th has to do more with, well, what the hell do I get out of that? Unless they're paying me, I'm not going to pardon them. Unless they're personally meaningful people to me, I'm not going to pardon them. I'm not interested in them. Besides which, I'm interested in them languishing in jail. In jail, January 6th offenders are a rallying cry and a cause, something I can raise money off of, something I can use to whip up the base and get them to come out and support me. And in the meantime, support the people I endorse for Congress in the midterms or gubernatorial elections or whatever around the country, and then eventually in 2024. They're better, for me, it's better with them in jail so that I can cry about their being in jail. I could have freed them with the stroke of a pen before January 20th, 2021, but I didn't do it. And that will never occur to people. People won't register with them that they were left languishing in jail. And some of them would be happy, even if you told them, yeah, the president knows and truly does believe that you're being mistreated in jail, but he needs you to be in jail being mistreated, whether you are or aren't. He's going to say you were being mistreated to rally the troops, at which point some of them would say, oh, okay, well, I'm actually fine with that. So maybe they're not missing out on anything. But yes, there was information about that earlier than now. But the new information is this: Trump considered blanket pardons for January 6th rioters before he left office. Just like with the seizure of the machines thing, this is following the same pattern. So pretty much everything that you heard early on in December 2020, in January 2021, and in the months that followed that you heard Trump might have been presented, he was definitely into. Don't worry about it. It'll all be proven. The previously unreported conversations show the former president wasn't simply musing when he floated pardoning the rioters if he runs and wins in 2024. And I'll just give you the opening couple paragraphs here. In the final days of his presidency, Donald Trump seriously considered issuing a blanket pardon for all participants in the January 6th riot, according to two people with direct knowledge of the matter. Between January 6th and Joe Biden's inauguration on January 20th, Trump made 3 calls to one advisor to discuss the idea. This is the new stuff. Do you think I should pardon them? Do you think it's a good idea? Do you think I have the power to do it? Of course he has the power to do it, you dummy. Trump told this person, who summarized their conversations. Another advisor to the former president said Trump asked questions about how participants in the riot might be charged criminally and how a uniform pardon could provide them protection going forward. Is it everybody that had a Trump sign or everybody who walked into the Capitol who could be pardoned? Anybody you want, man. Trump asked, according to that advisor. He said, some people, I think I should pardon them. He thought if he could do it, these people would never have to testify or be deposed. And I guess he was, I don't know, whatever. Anyway, the people who spoke with Trump were granted anonymity to describe their discussions frankly. Blah, blah, blah. And it goes on to then say the previously unreported conversations show that Trump wasn't simply musing when he told supporters at the Texas rally that he was going to do this stuff. Previously unreported. That's the part that, I guess not. But, I went back and grabbed some other stuff about that, including, I don't know, let me scroll back in my own feed. And one of them I parked in Pocket. But yeah, I asked yesterday with this Politico piece, weren't there reports that people on the Capitol grounds on January 6th were already buzzing about blanket pardons? And the answer is yes. I have this article plus the one I put in Pocket. This one is from Arizona, the Arizona Central site, which, is from therefore the Arizona Republic newspaper, their online site. From back in, this one was reported on October 25th of last year. So, it's still a long time after the riots. But this headline, Representative Paul Gosar spoke of, quote, blanket pardon ahead of the January 6th riot, report claims. Now, that's not Donald Trump speaking about it, but it's Paul Gosar doing it. And Gosar is a loyal Trump guy. I don't think he made it up, and I don't think he was speaking out of his hat. I think he heard discussion about this and figured, sure, the president's going to do it. Representative Paul Gosar encouraged people to plan rallies on January 6th because then President Donald Trump could provide them a blanket pardon in another investigation, according to a news story in Rolling Stone. So they were the ones reporting this story. I think we mentioned that story when it came out. Maybe I probably didn't read it because it's behind a paywall, maybe. I don't know. Or it's just huge and long. Citing two unnamed sources who participated in the main rally near the White House, which was followed by violence at the U.S. Capitol, and are communicating with congressional investigators, the magazine said Gosar indicated that he had discussed the matter with Trump in the Oval Office and gave them the impression it was likely to happen. Quote, "Our impression was that it was a done deal," one of the sources said, according to Rolling Stone. The story claims extensive planning and involvement in the rallies in Washington on that day from people in the White House and in Congress. Yes, in Congress. The House Freedom Caucus, headed by Representative Andy Biggs of Arizona, would give a boost to the accompanying paperwork for a presidential pardon, the magazine reported. That group of Republicans was Trump's most loyal faction on Capitol Hill and has remained in his corner even after the deadly riot at the Capitol. Gosar, though, denied the allegations in the article without elaborating. The Rolling Stone story is categorically false and defamatory, he said in a statement, but I don't think he's sued them about it at any point. The article that I had put aside in Twitter, also from the Daily Beast, more stealing from the Daily Beast, also dated from October, their version of the same story, reporting off of what Rolling Stone. But their headline, far-right congressman tricked January 6th planners with blanket pardon promise, says report. Hours after a pro-Trump mob stormed the Capitol, Representative Paul Gosar baselessly accused Antifa protesters of being behind the insurrection. But according to an exclusive report from Rolling Stone, Gosar knew exactly who was to blame and even offered them a pardon ahead of the events on January 6th. An unnamed organizer of the Stop the Steal rally that preceded the riot told the magazine that Gosar offered planners a blanket pardon in an unrelated investigation. Unrelated. To incentivize them to organize the pro-Trump protests on January 6th. So how far ahead of January 6th was this, after all? What was the other thing for which they would be pardoned? Remember, January 6th hadn't come to fruition yet. And maybe they didn't know exactly what they were going to try and do at January 6th, but I think they had a pretty good idea. But he was saying they would be pardoned not only for what they did on the 6th and what they were planning to do on the 6th, but for whatever else they were in trouble for beforehand, which is a highly questionable prospect. But, Trump could have been dangling it for anybody. But then again, they forgot who they were dealing with. And they should have been able to tell ahead of time. No, he will prefer to leave you languishing in jail and then cry about it for fundraising and campaign purposes. And they forgot who they were dealing with. So anyway, I guess it's a scoop of sorts. And Gosar has denied the whole thing earlier, but now I guess they're telling the January 6th commission, presumably under oath, that, no, it actually is true. So that'll become part of Gosar's subpoena and what they'll want to ask him about, even though he'll never show for it. Okay, one more thing I guess that I'll throw in the lightning round here just before we sign off for the day, because it's short and relatively stupid. The Daily Beast, I'm ripping them off for everything they've got today. Republican congressman falls for ridiculous conspiracy that Trudeau has fled to America. Jamie Ross reports this one. A U.S. congressman, you'll never guess where he's from. He's from Texas, and he's a Republican. It's Chip Roy. Appears to have convinced himself that Canada's Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, has fled to the States in fear of that group of truck drivers who are protesting vaccine mandates. In two Twitter posts, Chip Roy even called on the U.S. to deport Trudeau, even though the PM is not in the country. CNN reports that Roy fell for a baseless conspiracy theory. There's a lot of that going around. Posted by an anonymous Twitter account on Saturday, the original tweet showed a photo of Trudeau in the U.S. in 2016, and wrongly used that as evidence that he'd fled from ongoing vaccine protests. Wow, a picture of the Prime Minister of Canada in the United States, that's rock solid. Okay, firstly, Roy quoted that tweet and added the caption, "Is there a more gutless and cowardly display than a tyrant on the run?" Probably not, except you don't have one. So anyway, a day later he posted, if Justin Trudeau is hiding in the United States, we should return him to Canada and make him face his own people immediately. Why? I mean, even if it were true, why? But okay. However, as would be expected, Trudeau is in Canada. 2 hours before Roy tweeted, the PM even held a news conference from his official residence in Quebec. But you can't expect Chip Roy to have found anything out about that. He's just a regular old American congressman who has no access to the U.S. Department of State or anybody who could verify the story for him. What a dummy. Well, there we have it. That's the last of the things that I think we can fit in our lightning round of stupidity and, whatever else. But we still have Friday. And Friday is a great day for stupidity, so we can follow up with a lot more things and all the things that have been languishing still, despite the fact that we've tried to do a couple of lightning round blurt outs for everybody. But that just makes the anticipation of our Friday show that much the greater. How about now, instead of this, I can tell you the important news that Justice Putnam has lined up in the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy next, because he's serious and pays attention to real things. Well, what's this? Starting off here with neo-Nazis and Trump treat a racial disparity fix in healthcare as white genocide. Why not? Then, the reason Ron DeSantis ignores the racist history of urban planning, good story, is because then he'd have to admit it's systemic. Yeah, he was confused as to how roads and road planning could possibly be racist. Now, of course, if I decided to build a road but only over the homes of Italian Americans, he might get the point, but he might dispute that was racial.
From netrootsradio.com, you have been listening to Kagro in the Morning with David Waldman.
International news, too. Mexican federal agents arrested a state security chief on torture charges, and with investigative journalists murdered at an alarming rate, a Mexican journalist narrowly escaped in Cancun, nice place to escape, when the attacker's pistol malfunctioned. Keep sending the malfunctioning guns to Mexico. Great idea.